Welcome to this module on data interpretation. Data interpretation is a crucial skill that is assessed in case interviews. Interviewers often use exhibits to assess your ability to analyze information effectively, generate meaningful insights, and then leverage those insights to validate or disprove your initial hypothesis. In this module, we will be covering the data interpretation approach, and then we will be applying this approach to a StreamPro data interpretation exhibit example. In order to tackle data interpretation questions effectively, we recommend a five-step approach. The first step is to understand the exhibit. All right. So when an exhibit is handed over to you by the interviewer, try to focus on the axes, labels, units. You could also seek clarifications from the interviewer to fully understand the exhibit. After you've understood the exhibit, then try to contextualize the information on the data in the exhibit with the key question as well as the client objective, as well as other information you know about the client context and situation, right? So when you connect all these different pieces of information, you will be able to appropriately interpret and derive meaningful insights. Then in step 3, based on the data interpretation, if you identify that certain quantitative analysis has to be conducted to arrive at, let's say, a quantitative answer, right, which will drive us closer to the answer to the key question, then you first outline a logical analysis plan, right, and explain your plan to the interviewer. Request for further data if that is required, right? And only once you have aligned the approach with the interviewer, you then should proceed to the math competition, right? In step 4 is when we perform the calculations, right? Always, as we have repeated time and again, focus or prioritize accuracy over speed, right? Walk the interviewer through your math. Um, ensure transparency in terms of intermediate results, because if you provide transparency with regard to intermediate results, the interviewer could guide you or help you if you go wrong in certain arithmetic computation, right? If you just, let's say, take time, a minute in silence, and then finally announce your final quantitative answer, the interviewer has no way to guide you, or is not able to guide you where you might have, because he doesn't know where you might have gone wrong in the entire calculation, right? And finally, in step 5, we synthesize, right? We explain the implication of our results, right? What does the answer mean in the context of the case objective and the client situation, right? Does the answer support or refute our initial hypothesis, right? So always at the end of a certain analysis step, synthesize, and then navigate to the next analysis step as per your structure logic. Now, let's apply this data interpretation approach to our StreamPro case, right? And for that, let's revisit our structure logic. We've already analyzed high potential markets, and we have sized the revenue opportunity based on high potential market expansion related to LATAM. Now, let's say the interviewer wants us to prioritize optimization of pricing. So therefore, he might, let's say, hand over an exhibit to us and ask a question such as, is StreamPro operating at an optimal price point, right? So once you receive the exhibit, you thank him, you thank the interviewer to provide the exhibit, for providing the exhibit. And then we apply the 5-step approach, right? The first step, as we covered in the approach, is to understand the exhibit, right? So here, focus on understanding the labels, the units, right? Based on this, when you look at this particular graph, we see that this provides us a relationship between monthly subscription price on the x-axis and the number of subscribers on the y-axis, right? And it also provides us information that the current price is $8, and the number of subscribers at $8 price point is 50 million, right? Once we have understood this particular piece of information, then we move into contextualization of the information against the client objective, as well as against the client context and any information related to client situation we might have, right? So here we know the client objective is to increase revenue, right? So therefore we can relate this information to how can we increase revenue, right? Based on the exhibit that we see here, after $9, right? If you observe, there is a steep subscriber drop off, right? Beyond $9, and below $8, there is a plateauing trend, right? Which means these price points are not attractive, right? Because remember, we are looking at a price point which maximizes our revenue, right? So most likely, the product of let's say $10 and 30 million, right, would be lesser than a product of 9 and 48 million. Similarly, $8 and 50 million, right? Once we have contextualized the information and generated relevant insights, right? Here, the key insight is we need to study further the price point between $8 and $9, right? Because these two price points are attractive, right? And this price range demonstrates low price elasticity. Then we devise an analysis plan, right? Our analysis plan is to calculate what will be the revenue at monthly subscription price of $9 and what will be the revenue at a monthly subscription price of $8, right? To determine which price point offers higher revenue, right? So therefore, we perform the calculations, and what we discover is $9 price point offers higher revenue, a revenue of $5.2 billion relative to $4.8 billion, which a $8 monthly price point offers, right? Also, it's important for us to note here that streaming as a business most likely will be a high fixed cost business, right? Which means the variable cost is low, right? So if we increase price, most of that additional revenue will flow to our profits, right? Because the fixed cost has already been recouped based on the earlier price point, right? So let's look at then synthesis of this information, right? Last step is when we synthesize. What you could say is increasing the price to $9 is recommended because of the $4.4 billion revenue increase, right? And remember, when you're synthesizing, you tie it back to the client objective, right? The client numerical target is to achieve $1 billion of revenue increase. Um, Through price optimization, we are achieving a $0.4 billion revenue increase. Already through high potential market expansion, specifically the Latin market, we have achieved a $0.7 billion revenue increase. So therefore, we are meeting the target at this stage, right? Also, profitability is likely not a concern, right? Most of this revenue that we're generating is profitable revenue, right? Because of the high fixed cost nature of the streaming business, right? Now let's finally recap um, and list some key takeaways from this particular lesson. First takeaway is when you're given an exhibit, focus on understanding the data, right? A lot of candidates um, dive straight into generating insights before understanding the exhibit, right? So therefore, first, understand the exhibit, contextualize the information with the client objective, client context, and then connect these different pieces of information to generate meaningful insights, right? If certain case math has to be performed, first plan your analysis, plan your analytical approach or your analysis plan, right? Share it with your interviewer, and once the interviewer is aligned with your approach, only then take a pause or dive into calculations, right? Finally, synthesize, right? Explain the implications of this quantitative answer, tied back also to the key client objective, right? And talk about how it supports or refutes your initial hypothesis, right? Thank you for listening. In the next module, we will be covering the third type of analysis that you would typically encounter, which is the brainstorming. Thank you.